reading Chameleons Are Cool by Martin Jenkins. Some lizards eat bananas, chameleons don't. Some lizards can walk upside down on the ceilings, chameleons can't. But even a lizard that glides from tree to tree, a chameleon certainly wouldn't do that. But all of the different kinds of lizards, I think chameleons are the best. Chameleons are cool.
It's not that they're all that big. The biggest is only about the size of a small cat. It's called Ocelot's chameleon, and it lives in Madagascar. They can be really, really small, though. The smallest one could balance happily on your little finger. It's called the dwarf bruchisia, and it lives in Madagascar, too.
And I suppose you wouldn't exactly call many of them beautiful. Their skin is wrinkly and bumpy, and they've got big bulgy eyes, while lots of them have the most ridiculous
Noses! I think it's their noses I like best.
Their mouths are pretty odd too. They turn down at the corners, which is why chameleons always look grumpy.
Actually, they don't just look grumpy, they are grumpy. So if two chameleons bump into each other, they can get pretty lively. There's lots of puffing and hissing, and sometimes there's a real fight. And that's when chameleons do what they're most famous for. They change color.
Lots of people think chameleons change color to match their surroundings. They don't. They change color when they're angry, or when they're cold, or hot, or too hot, or when they're sick. And there are some sorts of chameleons that hardly change colors at all.
As a rule, though, chameleons don't bump into one another all that often. I suppose it wouldn't be fair to call them lazy, but they certainly don't move any more than they have to. And when they do, it's almost always incredibly slow. Sometimes they stop completely in mid-step, as if they've forgotten what they're supposed to do. But if you look closely, you'll see that they're actually carefully peering about.
Now, peering about is something chameleons are rather good at. That's because their eyes can move separately from each other, unlike our eyes, which always move together. So while one eye is looking back over the chameleon's shoulder, the other one is scanning the branches ahead. As soon as it spots something tasty, chameleon fixes both eyes on its prey and begins to creep forward, even more slowly than usual. Then it opens its mouth just a crack and
out shoots this amazingly long tongue with a sticky tip at the end, like a piece of well-chewed chewing.
when the tongue flies back and there's a lot of chomping and chewing and perhaps a few bites of insects' legs fluttering onto the ground, and after that the chameleon just sits there for an hour or two, doing nothing very much at all, looking quite exhausted and still grumpy after all that hard work.
And there you have it. How could you possibly resist a pocket-sized, bad-tempered, color-changing, swivel-eyed, snail-paced, long-tongued sharpshooter? If chameleons aren't cool, then I don't know what is.
The end. Today we read Chameleons Are Cool by Martin Jenkins. The reading level is 3.7 and it gives you half a point. The AR code is 21350.